Welcome to the Uncensored Self Podcast. I am your host, Ryan Gillen, and this is a space where women who value achievement, success, accomplishment, and wealth, but also crave happiness, love, joy, and deep fulfillment come to remember that we get to have both. Not by doing more, but by being more of who we truly are. In this show, we explore identity, energy, alignment, and embodiment because you didn't come here to follow someone else's rules. You came to right your own. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to the Uncensored Self Podcast. I am your host, Ryan Gillen, and today we are going to talk about how to stop running your business like a man and what to do instead. Hi, how are you? I hope that you had an amazing 4th of July weekend, spending some time with your family, doing something you enjoyed. I hope that you got a way to fill your cup in some way. So I had this clarity come through on Thursday, and I'm constantly asking myself the question about how can I go deeper into this work? How can I better serve my clients? How can I better understand and serve the women that I am meant to serve? That's just a constant question that I'm asking. It's kind of a prayer, if you will, right? I just leave it really open-ended. God, show me, show me, show me, show me. And this is what dropped in. We have to stop running our business like men. And I'm going to be fully honest with you. I felt a little uncomfortable with that at first because I don't ever want this to turn into men versus women, right? I think when I first started teaching sales to women, I do think it was very much men versus women. Women do this differently. Women are better, right? I very much felt that way. But as I have continued my energy journey and I've continued to learn about universal law, I've learned that the law of gender is the thing. And we all have both masculine and feminine energy inside of us. And both of them are required to move through the world, right? The challenge that I think that we have as women is that because the world has been run by men for so long, that so many of the examples that we have are masculine, and especially in business, because women were not really allowed to be in business or have businesses, right? Or if they did, it was cute little things, side hustle and style. That's why I believe the MLM industry looks and feels the way that it does, because it shares this idea of allowing women to do business in a way that's more aligned for them, right? So they call it social selling because women are great at sharing and talking and all of that. I do believe that it's been preyed on a little bit in that industry, but I do think there is something to be said for the idea that if we continue to try to run our businesses like men, that we are going to continue to overfeed our masculine energy, and it is going to cause the lack of fulfillment that so many of us are experiencing. And so that's really what I want to pull apart in this podcast today is how do we stop running our business like men? And are we even running our business like men? You might not even really know the answer to that question, but I'm going to help you pull it apart today. So if your business, it feels heavy, if it feels rigid, if it feels tiring, it feels like no matter what you do, it is never enough, then you are running your business in masculine energy. Right? We have been taught that business, whether you are running a business, whether you are a real estate agent, whether you are an entrepreneur, a tech founder, or a woman in a corporate job, or somewhere in between, we have been taught that success is built through hustle, strategy, and performance. And those, again, are very masculine energy. But you are not wired like a man. And I want to be really clear on this because this is not about who is better or not, right? It is not about can women do anything that men can do? Yeah, when it comes to business, I believe that women can build businesses that make as much money as the businesses that men make or build, right? I believe that women can sit in any position in an organization just like men do. So for me, when it comes to business, I do believe that women are completely capable of achieving what a man can achieve in business, right? Whether it be in revenue, whether it be in the type of company, whether it be in the type of team you're building or the job that you have. I believe that to be true 110%. I believe in our equality in that way. However, what I believe is that because we are biologically women, and because as women, we are wired differently, the male blueprint does not serve us in our feminine energy. It serves us in our masculine energy. But again, most of us have tipped way too far into that. So today I have 3 really ways you're unknowingly operating in the masculine. And then how do we shift into that feminine energy to actually grow the business with more ease, more alignment, more joy, right? And the first one is about goal setting. The way that we have been taught to set goals are masculine goals. We were raised on SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-bound, right? Something is something you hit and measure. You either win or you don't. And that is 110% masculine energy, black and white. It is when men are wired. If you spend time with men, if you have a dad or a brother or a husband or somebody that you've done business with, men are very black and white. Women tend to not be as black and white, right? It's the whole men are from Mars, women are from Venus, which by the way, I'm reading that book and I highly recommend it for anyone and everyone. I'm going to be fully honest, not just in relationships, but also understanding feminine and masculine energetics. I've really used it a lot for that, but that's all masculine energy, right? It's externally focused. It's hitting a number. It's very linear planning, right? We do 10,000 this month and 12,000 the next month and 15,000 the next month. It's a lot of control. It's a lot of productivity. It's a lot of what gets measured gets managed, right? Like that is masculine energetics in business. And so when we sit down as women to set goals for our business, we set goals in that way. But immediately, as soon as that goal makes it onto a piece of paper, it winds up tipping us too far into our masculine energy. And then all of the creativity, the vision, the fun, the magic, the play gets sucked right out of it, which is why so often people set goals at the beginning of the year and don't actually hit them, right? We just finished this mid-year comeback series, right, on here on the podcast. I think that is why, right? Like, I think that's what's really deepened this into me. The reason why we are off track from our goals is because we've set goals with so out of alignment with how we're wired that we can't get back on track, right? That there is no being on track for those goals because those goals are not likely what light you up and excite you, right? Because the feminine energetics are about like the vision over the goal. Like it's the number one thing that I do, or the first thing I do with all of my clients is we start with vision, because most of them come to me and they tell me I want to build $1 million business. And I'm like, that's amazing, right? They don't all have that goal, but they have a very clear, like, this is the type of business that I want to build. And I'm like, okay, cool. Tell me more about that. And there's not a lot more under that than that. It's just the money. Well, I just want to make X amount of dollars, or I just want Y amount of transactions, or I just want, but there's no vision for what does the business look like? What does it feel? How does it fill your soul? How do you work? How do you play? What is fun for you? Like that's never in that really masculine goal setting. So we think we have goals. We think we have vision, but we have a fucking number. And as women, that doesn't excite us. Our feminine energetic doesn't get excited about money or a number. I don't want to say that. I'm going to of course correct. The $1 million, if that's your goal, is $1 million business on a piece of paper is not going to fire you up, connect you, and motivate you like a vision of what you are creating, which is why I start with casting vision. Are you casting vision for yourself, for your business, for your goals, or are you merely writing down a number on a piece of paper, right? Another thing that we need to do as women that men don't always is we need to focus on how does it feel? Emotions over metrics. Men are great at metrics. That is how they're wired. Masculine energy is metrics. Give me the numbers. Let me manage it. That is how they thrive. That is why they are able to perform really well, right? But for us, it's more about how does it feel? Does the business feel good? Does it feel exciting? Do I feel connected? Do I feel challenged? Do I feel passionate about my work? Am I interested in what I'm doing? Like that is so much more important to us as women, because when we can stay in that energy, we can sustain more work. When we don't worry about the emotion, right? We leave the emotion out, or as women, what we do is we, just push our emotions aside because who the fuck has time for that, right? And we jump right into the masculine. We miss that, right? And so then again, we just wind up working for work's sake instead of working towards something really specific. And our barometer is how does it feel instead of what are the metrics, right? And the feeling is really what fuels it. The more excited we are about things, the more passionate we are about it, the more interested we are in it, the more energy that we can give it, and the better that energy feels, and the more results that's going to create. That is something we naturally do as women. But again, when we get stuck in that doing linear step by step, there's no, like, your feelings can't guide you because you just have to take the next step. But sometimes our feelings are telling us this next step isn't aligned. You don't want to take the next step. The next step isn't actually where you want to go. The next step is actually part of the problem, right? That's part of what your emotional guidance system is actually telling you. So with women, it's very much this co-creative thing that we have to do with God, universe, source, whereas masculine energy allows us to be much more linear. But the problem that this winds up creating for us as women is it puts us under pressure to perform, right? We have this fear of failing the metric, and we get this disconnection from our vision, which is why, again, so often we work so hard and we achieve the goal and we actually do the thing, and then we're like, well, this didn't feel the way that I wanted it to, because we're completely disconnected. Because again, it was just a number on a board. So for women, the first thing I want you to shift is move from what should I do to what do I desire, right? How do I want my business to feel? How do I want to spend my time? And then when we can let that vision lead, not just a number or not just metrics, we can really anchor into how we want to feel. And that's when we're tapping into our feminine energy. That's when we're tapping into, God, source, the universe. That's when we're tapping into universal law. That's where the magic comes from. But most of us are so disconnected from our magic and stuck in the masculine that we never allow that in, which is, again, why so many women are lacking clarity, and they feel like they're doing more and doing more and doing more, but it's not getting closer to their goal because, again, they're stuck in their masculine energy. And that means you're running your business like a man instead of allowing yourself to run your business like a woman. And I also want to be really clear in this. Running your business like a woman doesn't mean that we don't ever do. It doesn't mean that we don't use spreadsheets. We don't read, don't use our intellect, and we don't study our P&L, and we aren't smart business people. It's that we don't let that be the driver. So I'm not saying no to any of those things we talked about, right? Number, goals, metrics, like things that are important in the world that we live in today. I'm saying less of them and more of your feminine energy, right? If you're all in on that, again, you are all the way in the masculine. Balance is what's important here. And that lack of balance is what is creating the lack that you're feeling in your life right now. The stress, the overwhelm, the lack of fulfillment is coming from that place of being, again, too far into the masculine. So we're not saying no to setting goals in that way. We're not saying no to doing business in that way. We're saying less of doing business in that way and more of doing business in your feminine energetics, because it's just going to feel better. And the better it feels, the better you feel. And the better you feel, again, we go back to the law of attraction, the law of vibration, right? The better we feel, the more that we can attract. When we are constantly coming out of our alignment to perform in a certain way, we don't feel like ourselves. We are literally out of alignment. So while we can, through effort and force, create something of a result, it's not going to feel that way because, again, we are not in our feminine energetics, right? So this leads me right into kind of the next point here, which is overwork. Overworking is something that I think as a society we have a problem. I think also, over masculine energetics and men have this same challenge. But what we have been taught is to work harder, do more, follow the steps. And success comes from those who earn it, right? And again, extremely masculine. Masculine energy says strategy over energy. I don't give a fuck how it feels, get up and do it. That is extremely masculine, right? Consistency over alignment. I don't care how you feel today, get up and do it. Same thing, right? Doing over being. I don't care if it doesn't feel aligned, get up and do it. Linear, step by step, logical. That is all masculine energy, and it all tells you to just ignore your feelings and do more. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more in a couple of minutes. We're going to dig into like what really feminine energetics are, but I can't even think of a place where we are more out of alignment than in our desire to feel or our need to feel productive all of the time. Because again, the masculine energetics of business, the masculine story of business, the male way, the men's way of doing business is to just work harder. And because they are more wired for it, it works better for them. And because and quite frankly, I think this is where the men in our lives are suffering, is because they've been told to push their feelings aside as well, right? Boys don't cry, that whole story. But I think what winds up happening here is we just get so stuck in the strategy and the blueprint, and then we become almost desperate for that strategy and that blueprint to work for us. But I'm here to tell you it's not going to, because it's it's tipped the scales, right? So feminine energy is understanding like seasonality. There are seasons of life. There are seasons of friendship, right? Especially as women, when we have kids, right? Like when your kids are teeny tiny, you're in a different season of life, right? Like I'm just now entering this, what I call like the freedom phase of parenting. George is 6, right? Going into first grade. Like we are so close to a whole lot of independence. That makes my life look and feel different. So there's a different seasonality in my business because of my children, right? Men don't often have that. Not that it doesn't happen in their lives, but the male way of doing business doesn't give any attention to women's needs of seasonality of childcare and things like that, right? The patriarchy has made that really fucking crystal clear, right? So I think that is something that we tend to miss, right? Is that this overwork idea of productivity, but then we're also still supposed to be again, in our feminine at home, we are still supposed to be the nurturer and the caregiver of our children, and the nurturer and the caregiver of our home, and the nurturer and the caregiver of our communities, and the nurturer and the caregiver of all these things. And we're over here trying to do all this stuff for our business. And we are so disconnected from who we are because we're spending all of our time pulling ourselves back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And that's why you're so fucking exhausted. I honestly think this is where burnout comes from. I don't think that burnout actually comes from overwork. I think it comes from doing too much shit that's out of alignment. Because when you are aligned, you can get so much fucking done in such a short period of time, and it feels good, and you could do more of it later if you wanted to. Like that's how I feel about alignment. Obviously, there's the energetics of like, if you feel depleted, sit down and relax, but you can do so much more when you are aligned versus just doing through for pure effort and willpower, because eventually you will run out of that. And because you're not at all ever in your feminine energy, you're not at all ever filling your cup, you're not at all ever meeting your needs as a woman, you're burnt out and you feel exhausted and everything feels like it's falling apart. And that is why. So that's what I mean about the seasonality, right? Alignment over effort, right? I'm not doing anything that doesn't feel aligned. That's what I mean by that. Like, it's not that I'm not willing to work hard, but if it doesn't feel good, if I'm not excited about it, if it doesn't light me up, if I don't feel in my body that like, this is something that I do, I'm not willing to give it any effort. That's just not it for me. And I like the biggest challenge in this is in relationships, right? Because as women, we tend to be the overgiver in our relationships. We put a lot of effort into our relationships, both personally and professionally. And that is oftentimes not reciprocated, right? Like stop managing all the relationships in your life and watch what happens. Like stop being the one that reaches out to everybody. Stop being the one that always invites everybody over. Stop being the one that always plans all the things and makes sure everybody's okay. And we touch with so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. And I'm just keeping all the people together, right? Because that's what we were taught to do as women. But when you stop doing that, you're going to realize how many of your relationships aren't being reciprocated, right? And the reason why this is so important is because we put in a whole lot of effort and we're out of alignment, right? And then magnetism over manipulation. I think this may be the biggest one. Manipulation is the number one tactic of marketing, to manipulate you to feel a certain way so that you buy a certain thing. Marketing 101. And is actually the biggest challenge that I'm having right now as I grow a business from an energetic place, from a place of my from my feminine energetics, from really learning how to trust and surrender and not manipulate. And I hate to say that, but I mean, I worked in marketing for almost 20 fucking years. And the more that I look, I was like, of course we're manipulating people. We were telling people they weren't good enough. And the only way they were going to be good enough is if they bought our shit. Like, come the fuck on, right? That's also why so many women have such a hard time marketing. It's not that they're not excellent marketers and excellent storytellers and excellent sharers and excellent people, like persuasion. Like, we're so good at all of those things. But again, we're being taught to do it in this really manipulative way, because if I can just make you feel a certain way, you'll buy, right? If I can just make you feel a certain way, you'll hire me. If I can just make you feel a certain way, you'll follow me, and not in a positive way. Whereas magnetism is, I understand that I am the one generating the frequency that other people are responding to. And I don't want to manipulate people to do business. I don't want to have to force people to do their jobs. I don't want to have to force people to buy things from me. I don't want to force people into doing things they don't want to do to be aligned. Like, that's just not it for me. So feminine energetics is magnetism over manipulation, magnetism over force, right? Thinking that if I just force the people to do the things, they'll do it. Again, a big place where so many women are out of alignment, because again, the examples that they're watching are men, and the examples that they're watching are women who were taught by men. The number of women, when we go all the way up of like, who's your mentor, who's their mentor, who's their mentor, it's a fucking dude every single time. So if you feel like you're manipulating people, it is because you are. Not intentionally, not from a place of malice, not from a place of intention, but if you are following the masculine blueprint for sales and marketing, you are very likely manipulating people's emotions instead of connecting to people's emotions. And when we're in our feminine energetics and we're magnetic as fuck, that's why we say we don't chase, we attract. It just comes to us because it feels good, right? We can effort and force it, right? Like, I can put that square peg in that round hole, and if I put enough effort into it, I will wear the two down enough to where they fit together, right? So yes, I can force those two things together. But when I am working on bringing two things together that fit, I don't need that force. Magnetism versus manipulation. That's what's happening here. And what this creates for women is, again, hustle, right? Results that feel flat. We've all experienced that. We've all hit a goal and felt like it was not enough, right? I call them energy leaks in my work with my client, right? Like, we're leaking energy. And what I mean by that is we're giving energy to shit that we don't fucking like. And it's going to feel like it is never enough. Never, ever, 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 ever enough, because overworking was never what was meant for us. So for women, what we need to shift is, instead of working more, focusing our energy, right? Reclaiming our power. I talk about this all the time, right? Like, your personal power is the power that God, source, the universe gave you to create with. But most of us have it all out in all these different places. So our energy isn't focused, and we're relying on our effort. What we want to do is we want to focus our energy and have our effort follow that, right? Because doing more doesn't equal creating more. Doing more out of alignment actually just creates more chaos. So it's really about, what is my energy when I take the action? It's going to get you such a better result, right? I'm going to give you a very specific example of a client who very recently went from a pretty empty pipeline and a couple of active deals to having 10 deals under contract like that, like literally within 6 weeks, overnight. Do you know the number one thing that I told her to do? I told her to just be a woman enjoying her life, right? So she's got this particular client has some fun stuff happening in her personal life. And I'm like, every time you find yourself in overwhelm, in stress, in anxiety, in worry, in overwork, I want you to come back to self, and I want you to focus your attention on your energy at just being a woman who fucking loves her life. Just be a woman who just fucking loves your life. And sure enough, with no extra effort, guys, zero extra effort, she's still taking the same action she takes every day. So it's not like she's doing nothing. She's simply not doing more. Right? Again, none of this is about doing nothing. It's about not needing to do more. And in fact, for most of us, it is a great big do less. So this client, basically what I told her was do less, go enjoy your life, do what needs to be done in the business, but do less, go enjoy your life. And out of nowhere, it just boom, 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 pop, 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 like popcorn. That is feminine energetics. That is the magic of magnetism, right? There was no effort in the world that was going to create that opportunity, right? So when we can really lean into doing more doesn't create more, because again, when I met this client, she was doing all of the things and has never had 10 deals under contract, right? So she's working less, focusing more on things she fucking loves, and she's doing more. That's the magic of the feminine energetics. And then the third piece here is that we are overriding our intuition with logic, right? We have been taught logic over everything. Be rational, make it make sense, have a business plan, let the numbers, give me the projections, all of that. Extremely logical, extremely masculine energy, right? Masculine energy says data over desire. Again, I don't care what you're enjoying. The data tells us this. Right? This is reason over resonance, right? Like, well, let me explain why this makes sense. I don't really care that it doesn't feel good, right? Men find safety in logic. Show me the proof first. Men are inherently problem solvers. Again, I told you, reading, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Men are so singularly focused, so singularly focused. It is their superpower. It is what they are so good at. They can solve one problem at a time. So when they create goals and they work in this way, it works for them because it's how they're wired. We're not wired that way. We are wired in our feminine energetics, right? So that is our intuition, that gut feeling that like, oh my gosh, I have this crazy idea and I know this feels wild and it just came out of nowhere and I just want to play with this, right? Like that's your intuition. When you get the inclination that says reach out to that person, you fucking reach out, right? When you get that inclination to create that product, you create that product. When you get that intuition to not, switch from this brokerage to that brokerage, follow that. But that is feminine energetics, and we have been taught to override that in such a big way, right? We just have this inner knowing. I don't know why. I just feel like this is not a good fit. Like I just feel like this isn't going to go the way that I want it to, right? And it doesn't always make sense, right? It doesn't always make sense. And when we get into the feminine energetics, it's inspired action. It's not always following a checklist and following the blueprint. It's like, I know this is crazy and weird and wild, but I'm just going to fucking do it, right? Like me sitting here recording this podcast. This was an idea that came through on Friday. It is Monday and I'm here recording this. This is inspired action, right? Like I took the idea, I chewed on it, I played around with it, I rolled it around in my head. I had a good conversation with ChatGPT about it. And then I put this together and here I am taking inspired action, right? Like that's it. It's that fucking simple, but we override that, right? Because it doesn't follow a blueprint. It doesn't follow a plan. It doesn't look like how everybody else's business or everybody else's plan looks together. But what this winds up creating for us as women is that we second guess our soul. We just fucking ignore it, right? Like our soul has been guiding us for so long, but we just ignore it. We talk ourselves out of our ideas. We get these amazing ideas and these amazing, just like, oh my God, this would be so fun and so amazing. And then we're like, yeah, no, it's already been done before. There's too many, I don't have time for that, right? We use imposter syndrome and we mask it as logic, right? We delay our momentum because we're like, doesn't make sense. Am I on track? Do other people approve? We outsource approval in such a big way, and it creates so much chaos. So what's really important here is we have to start trusting ourselves. You don't need the data to go first. Women move from our body, not our brains. Period. End of. That's why our bodies are the way they are. That's why we can literally create life. That's why we have 28-day menstrual cycles. Like our body moves with the cycles of the moon. Our moods move with the cycle of the tides. Like I know this is a little weird and esoteric, but if you go looking for it, it's actually fucking science, right? Move from your body and not your brain. If most of us are moving only from our brain, we have given our brain so much power and we have ignored and abandoned and just made our bodies feel like shit because not the sizes that they're fit, and we've ignored all of our emotions and it's been screaming at us this whole time. That's what's going on is we're ignoring our nudges. We're ignoring our emotion. We're ignoring our body, right? Your soul doesn't speak in logic. It speaks in vibration, and your job is to listen. Right? Your job is simply to listen and to follow it even when it doesn't make sense. And this is so challenging when it comes to business because the world tells us, don't do that. That's so risky. That's so risky. Yeah, it is. But there's nobody I'd bet on more than you and more than me, right? So I really want to just kind of land the plane here for you. Like, how do we build a business like a woman, right? Running your business like a man. I want to be clear. It works. It will work until it doesn't. Until you burn out, until you achieve everything and you still feel like it's not enough, until you realize that you have been proving and pushing and performing your way to success and it's still not fulfilling. And the truth of the matter is, at the core, your business doesn't need more strategy. It needs more of you. But the feminine energetics in you, more softness, more feeling, more self-trust, more soul, more fun ideas. And I think what's really important here is this isn't about rejecting the masculine. I've said this a couple of times. It's about letting the feminine lead. We've been letting the masculine lead in our businesses for so long. I'm not telling you to like kick it out and never use it. I'm telling you, let your feminine lead and let the masculine support her. That's literally life. Right? This is literally how it works in nature. This is literally how it works in the jungle with animals and packs of animals. I think it's how we were intended to live as men and women. It just got so fucking distorted over the years because of religion, because of power, because of money, because of politics, right? Because of belief systems. But at its core, that's what we were always intended to do as women. We were always intended to be supported by the masculine. But again, we are putting all of our power in the masculine and not ever moving into that place to be supported. Right? So it's when we let that feminine energetic, when we let our intuition, when we let our magic, when we let our play, when we move with the flow, when we move with the seasons, when we move with the nudges, yeah, we do that. And then we also let the masculine support us, right? That's the magic of building your business in your feminine energetics. So we have to stop letting the masculine lead in an unhealthy way, right? We have to stop letting it lead in an unhealthy way, and we need to let it lead and support us in the way that it was always intended to. I've used the example before. I think I shared it during the mid-year comeback series when I was talking about, I was watching, I don't even know how I landed there with like a lioness and her cubs. It was actually a group of female lions and their cubs, right, in the jungle, and they're teaching the kids how to play and hunt and learn. That's what they do. That's how they teach cats. But the reason why she doesn't look like she's worried about predators is because she's supported by the masculine, because the lions are out there hunting and protecting, and she's able to walk confidently knowing that she's being hunted for and being protected, so she can be in her power, which means she can swagger through the fucking jungle with her cubs and be like, touch me, I fucking dare you, right? So this is not about feminism versus not. This is not really about men versus women. This is about us being overly into our masculine energy in our businesses. And it is what is creating this I'm calling it literally an epidemic of incredible women who are so unfulfilled despite achieving wild things. Or on the flip side of that, a lot of women who are never actually able to reach the level of success they know that they're capable of, because the only examples they have are of the masculine. The only examples they have of that really masculine energy and that over force and over efforting and over logic, and they don't align with it. That's what's happening for most of the women who wind up in my world. The story always looks a little bit different, right? How they got there always looks a little bit different. But the truth of the matter is, most of the women that come to me, it is the challenge that they're having, the lack of fulfillment that they're having, the stalling that's happening in their businesses is coming from a place of being too heavily into our masculine energy and totally neglecting the feminine energy. And when we neglect the feminine energy, we neglect our soul. And our soul is what drives us. We are literally spiritual beings in human bodies. We are energetic beings in human bodies. We came here to have a human experience, but we have souls, and those souls are talking to us in the way that we feel. So those feelings, that overwhelm, that stress, that anxiety, that overwork that you feel all the time, is your soul telling you, we don't like this. You are on the wrong path, right? Like, it's all the warning signs. Right? Those are the warning signs. They're not an invitation to push harder. They're not an invitation to do more. It is a warning sign that says something isn't aligned. Something isn't aligned here. When you learn to lean into the feminine energetics and support it with the incredible skills that you have in your masculine energy, that's when business gets to be fun. That's when you wind up with 10 deals under contract, bada bing, bada boom. That's when you wind up with a consulting client for a project you didn't even fucking ask for, because somebody reaches out to you and says, hey, can you help me with this? This is where you wind up in conversations you didn't even know they existed. Stop running your business like a man. Don't stop using your masculine energy. Stop running your business like a man. Those are two entirely different things. I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Uncensored Self Podcast. If this conversation cracked something open for you, trust that that's the work. And share this episode with a woman in your life who's ready to stop performing and start creating. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe, leave a review. It helps this message reach the women who need it most. Remember, you're the creator. The rules are yours. And your uncensored self, she already knows what to do. Keep leading, keep listening, keep becoming.